let's talk about number lines. You might have noticed that number lines are appearing more and more on your children's homework and tests from school, and that's for a good reason. Number lines are a really powerful mathematical tool. But unfortunately, lots of kids don't actually understand the number line when they start using them. And that's a problem because it can lead to big blocks in understanding later on and also frustration, of course. So instead of just showing my daughter a number line and telling her how to use it, I had her create one for herself. I'm going to share the steps and responses that I used so that you can also use them for your child. First, I set up piece of painter's tape on the ground. You could use masking tape or really anything else. Then I put a 0 sticky note at one end and a 10 sticky note at the other end. Then I put the numbers 1 through 9 on sticky notes and asked her, where did you think they went? Notice I didn't tell her where they went. I didn't give her a hint to start. I wanted to see exactly what she would do. This tells me something about her understanding. She actually mentioned she had used a number line before at school, so I was curious to see what would come of this. Sure enough, she made a pretty common mistake that you might see your child make as well. Most of the numbers were scrunched up towards the 0 end. I left the number line big enough so that there had to be space between the numbers. That's a key thing to make sure that you do. I didn't jump in though and tell her, that's not correct, or hey, this is here how you do it. Instead, I used a really critical teaching tool. I just asked an open-ended question. I said, what do you think about this? She looked at it and she said, either it's not long enough or it's not short enough. She could tell it wasn't right. So I asked her, okay, how could you fix it? She kind of wanted to make the tape shorter, but I said we weren't going to do that. So she took the numbers and she started to move them a little bit more. They got a little less scrunched, but we were still a bit closer to the end of the 0 for most of the numbers. So I knew I needed a follow-up question. So I asked her, what is the distance between 1 and 2? Or what would you have to add to 1 to get to 2? She said 1. Then I asked her, how about 6 and 7? They're farther apart on her number line than 1 and 2 were. I was like, how much would you have to add to get from 6 to 7? She answered 1 again. And then I said, does the 1 between 1 and 2 look like it's the same amount as the 1 between 6 and 7? And she said no. Then I asked her if she thought that mattered. She also said no. And so here I did jump in a little bit more and I said, well, a number line is a visual, a way to see the relationship between numbers. And so we want to see that relationship is what it should be on here. So if we want to make that 1 the same amount, what can we do? She took the numbers off and she knew she had to change things, but she was still a little stuck. So I asked another question. I asked her, what's halfway between 0 and 10? She pointed to the middle spot in the number line. So then I asked, what number is halfway between 0 and 10? She was able to grab the 5 and put it right there. She wasn't entirely sure what to do after this. So then I pulled out the numbers 1 through 4 and said, how about we start with these? Where could you put them? And she was able to put them reasonably spaced from each other and 0 and 5 between that section of the number line. I didn't need to prompt. She went and grabbed 6 through 9 and put those on the rest of the number line. Now her number line looked like a real number line with a roughly the same, it wasn't perfect, but roughly the same distance between each of the 2 number pairs. We didn't stop there. I did a few more number lines and I didn't always do the same length. We did 0 through 8, we did 0 through 5. I didn't want her to get accustomed to just using the same space every time. I wanted her to have to think about what's the relationship between these numbers, because that's building really critical proportional reasoning that I know will help her later on in math. Number line work doesn't have to and certainly shouldn't even really stop here. You can do number lines with bigger numbers too, 0 through 20, and rather than having them put all the numbers on, you could ask them, where would 18 go on this number line? That gets them thinking about the relative distance of 18 to 20 versus 0. This is building really critical proportional reasoning skills that are going to be so valuable when they get to fractions and later mathematics. You could even do 0 to 100 and ask, where would 52 go on this? I did this with my 6-year-old kindergartner, but really this type of activity would be appropriate for any child kindergarten through 5th grade. Find out that they're really comfortable with the number line, or you may find out that they need a little bit more thinking time to figure out how a number line works. We've got all our questions and the steps we used down in the description for you, so make sure to check those out if you want a little bit more guidance. And be sure to like and subscribe to see more math content about how to help support your child's math learning effectively, as well as help us make more videos to make more math happy families.